We continue in the 10th letter. Spoke yesterday, Is Chesed v'Is Chesed, the Zohar says. There are two types of kindness. There is Chesed Olam, a kindness that is of the world, meaning it's limited, just as the world is limited. And then there's Rav Chesed. Then there is an abundant form, beyond this world, boundless form of Chesed, of kindness. We went to explain, based on that the Torah that we have, that guides us in our lives, is coming from, metaphorically, God's right hand, Chesed, kindness, the Torah of kindness, which would mean God's kindness is without limit, yet it becomes mipia gvura. It's expressed. It's actually given and communicated to us, as the term is, from the mouth of gvura, which is the left hand, severity or fire or contraction, limited. And from there we came to understand that the Torah that we have has a delimiter to it. It has to find itself an expression in the finite. Now, with this, we can understand something that many people have a difficulty with. What's with all the details? It's so important that, when I pray, I do it. I pray properly. If anybody has been in a synagogue and hears someone who's reading from the Torah and they make a minor mistake, they're corrected. They pronounce the word instead of ace, they said s. The vowel is a little differently. It doesn't make any difference really in the meaning, but everything is so precise and exact. Why is that so necessary? Why is it so necessary? Well, the Alter Rebbe explains over here that the length of the tzitzis must be 12 times the width of a gudel, of a thumb. Tefillin have to be minimally 2 finger breadths by 2 finger breadths. They have to be square. A lulav has to be, this is a hand breadth, has to be 4 hand breadths. A sukkah minimum size is 7 hand breadths. A shofar is 1 hand breadth. A mikvah has to be 40 saw. The amount of water that would be, if anybody ever remembers what a telephone booth is, that amount of water. Offerings on the altar also have a delimited measure in regards to age. A sheep is 1 year old, a ram 2 years old. And when it comes to charity, which is the pillar that one of the pillars that the world stands on, that the world is built by chesed, by kindness, nevertheless, there's also a delimiter. Maximum 20%. The average would be 10%. Meiser. And this is called chesed olam. Chesed of the world, meaning it is a degree of divine kindness that is drawn down into this world in a measured manner. It's measured and it's brought down into this world by us fulfilling the mitzvahs in their detailed, delimited manner. So when we are doing an act of kindness, of charity, between each other, being that the world is finite, the mitzvah is also done in this finite manner, and the Torah commands us to do it in a limited, measured way, like all of the other commandments. This is called chesed olam, a chesed, a kindness of the world, just as the world is limited, so likewise the kindness that we do between each other also has a delimiter to it. As we said, maximum 20%, the average should be, should be 10% is the minimum actually. And why is this? Is because the Torah is an expression of God's kindness, but also of mipi agvura, metaphorically like fire. Fire meaning severe, as fires can be severe, right? In the sense that there is a contraction, a delimiter, put it on the light of God that is influencing us or bringing us or being imbued with when we do a particular mitzvah. And in here we're talking about the mitzvah of the kindness that we do for each other in charitable ways and others. So because the Torah is an expression not merely of kindness, but of gevura, therefore there is in everything in the Torah very precise details. And therefore it's necessary, those details, because it's in the details is how you draw the infinite kindness of God, ultimately. In other words, it's so many people would think, like if the tefillin's not between your eyes, or it's on your forehead a bit, and it's not precisely between your eyes, so I mean, isn't it the idea that counts, right? That's what you would think. So let's unpack this. Is this the idea that counts? Is it about the feeling? If Torah and mitzvahs were just given to us in order that we can have a feeling of closeness to God, then that would be one thing. But if Torah and mitzvahs was given to us mipi gevura, it's given to us from the mouth of Hashem's gevura, his power, his delimiting strength. So that means he's giving it to us with all of its details in a precise way, because it's in that precision that we are able then to bring the light of God into this world. Without that precision, it would be impossible. A very simple metaphor for this, I sent an email the other day, and I sent it to person.ca, which is Canada. And in the end, I made a mistake. It was really .com. So I was like 2 letters off. What's the big deal? I mean, I had the right name. Just did this .ca rather than .com. Or if you just left the dot, you did com, but not .com. Right? What's the big deal? So that's just a metaphor for us to appreciate that even a small little dot that seems to be insignificant, you can't make the connection with the other person if you don't have it. So likewise, when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs, we can't make the connection with God only with the details. And that we see that in human relationships. That in human relationships, it's like the small details that when we are aware, when we are conscious and focused on the small details, that's what a person senses, and it makes the connection to another, because you thought of the small details, aware of them and caring about them, that really connects us to another. What connects us really to another? Is there a difficulty with the volume here? Hold on, let me just see my computer here. Oh, it's on maximum. Oh, everything's should be good. Is anybody having volume problems? Just could be maybe the computer. So yeah, that's the message, or a message. All right, any questions, any comments, any thoughts on this idea? 2 question marks before you ask a question, please, on Facebook and Instagram. It's a little difficult on Clubhouse, but just put up your hand. Come and join us. If you have something to share or something to ask. I don't see anything on Facebook. Please all right, thank you. Sammy, please share with us.
Hello, Rabbi Teacher Ronnie. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I came in a little late, but I had wanted to ask this question for a few days. I'm reading this book by Professor Amy Levine. Very good book. I wanted to. There's a difference in the statement. It says, "Thy kingdom come," in the Christian text, versus in the Judaism text, it says, "In the world to come." As in the, if am I getting that? Am I getting that correct? And there's a distinction between the two. And I just wanted to understand this distinction because it's important. Because if it's the world to come, it means now, here, to do things now, to make the world paradise, heavenly, by everyone doing the acts of kindness and love, as opposed to thy kingdom come. I'm not sure. Does that mean afterlife? I'm a little confused by the difference, but I know there's a difference in in the implications of the meaning.
So the world to come can mean the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden. It can mean that. Specifically, it doesn't mean that, because Gan Eden is not a world to come. It's a world that exists. It exists now. That's where the souls, when they leave this world, get there. So that would be, in that sense, it's not and that world is just in a different dimension. That if a person's a holy person, they have access to that dimension. They're connected to souls that have left this world. But it sometimes is, the reference is to come, meaning after this world, our soul will have the pleasure of the divine revelation, of a glimmer of the divine revelation in that world that comes, called Gan Eden, Garden of Eden. But more precisely, the world to come means the times of Mashiach. And in the times of Mashiach, there's the first part of Mashiach, which is really more peace on earth, and where the world is in its normal state. And then there's a time of resurrection of the dead that comes thereafter. So that would be more in the world to come would be, but it can be used in both ways. More, I don't know, I wouldn't call it more precise necessarily. It's more precise in the term, but it is still, it's used in both ways. So that's what it means. And in that world, the presence of God will be real, and we will be not like now. God is hidden in this world. We need to search for Him. We need to search in our hearts. We need to search in the world. In that world, it'll be much more clear and obvious God's presence. So that's in brief. Okay, I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It does. It reinforces. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay, very good. Jeff.
Okay. So, I was hoping you could kind of maybe just put together the yesterday and today.
Sure.
And tie this back to our that kindness is not ended, or we have more. We need to complete. I don't know how to say it anymore.
Yeah. No, very good. But for that we're gonna have to be patient, because the Alter Rebbe is going to do that in the forthcoming. I don't think it'll be tomorrow. I think maybe the day after that he will tie everything in. Since we do the teachings based on the way it is divvied out on a daily basis, so the tie-in is coming.
Okay.
Is coming.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate your what's the word I'm looking for? Eagerness to tie things in and get things and to have clarity.
Exactly. Okay, then let me just say this. That what I hear you saying is, the vivid memory is the description that you gave of our people when they saw the unbridled, the raw power, and their souls left their bodies. So there needs to be constraint, and there needs to be even on limited goodness for us mere humans. Even the goodness has to be balanced or like shrouded or limited. So at least that's a tie-in, right?
Yes. In other words, and there's exactly the fact that this kind of kindness that we're talking about, the limited form, expresses itself that in every mitzvah there is so many parameters in how to do the mitzvah. Even in the act of kindness, there's parameters, right? Not to give more than 20%, to give not less than 10%, and the like. So, that's exactly the idea that we're talking about over here. We're going to see that there's a different kind of kindness, right? But that'll be tomorrow. Is that's clear?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Oh, 1 second. I see here a couple of questions. Let me. Davida, if a person asks for money from someone, are we obligated to give it to them even if they have an ulterior motives? It's mandatory because Hashem wants us to give charity. Is it mandatory? That's a hard word. It's mandatory to give. Do you have to give to every single person? I mean, if you could, but then it doesn't mean every person you have to give $100 to. If you give a person a quarter, you give a person $1, depending on what the circumstances, and they're panhandling, very different than someone who's in your community who lost their job and now really needs help. That's very different. So, and this person, That's very different, obligation. And amounts, really, when you got to think about it, for a person to give $1, now it can be in some synagogues. There's so many people panhandling. If you gave $1 to everybody, and you pray 3 times a day, that could be a hefty amount. I've experienced it. Giving is not necessarily the amount here. Okay, I hope that brings some clarification. I have another question here. Usher, Meiser, 10%, minimum tzedakah. The minimum is 10%, the maximum is 20%, and what we're talking about over here is the Gvura limited, right? The destructive possibility of chesed. The flood water is out of control. Yes, that's you could put it that way. Right. Carl, does the concept of olam, eternity, in this discussion of the world to come? So the word olam over here means world, and it's not about the world to come. Here it's not about an eternity, because world can also olam. The olam or meo maya means for eternity. That's not the reference over here. The reference over here is world, limited, and therefore mitzvahs are limited because it's a reflection of the world that's limited. Okay, I think I got everybody except for Elisheva. Okay, how come I don't see a question mark before? No. Elisheva, if you want to repost. Oh, chesed v'chesed. So we merit Hashem's chesed via mitzvahs. Correct. So we merit Hashem's chesed, yes. His kindness, exactly. Kindness means, what does it mean, kindness from God? Get there in a moment. Jane, how should I properly correct the thought that being kind to people who wrong you again and again is a sign of weakness? It's a sign of weakness. Sounds to me like weakness is that weakness is that we can't be forgiving. Weakness is that we can't rise above our feelings, that our feelings are king for us, that our feelings is the truth. Our feelings are truth, are they? There are feelings, but are they truth? Just because I feel it doesn't make it truth, right? I think that's an important thing. That doesn't negate the feeling. It doesn't negate the hurt. It doesn't make it true. It just makes the feeling true. It doesn't make anything about that person or anything that the person did truth. That's really important, to be able to be forgiving to someone who repeatedly hurts us and doesn't even ask for forgiveness. But you can still be forgiving even if they don't ask. That's real strength. That's real taking the high road. So that doesn't right their wrong. It just doesn't allow that their wrong should control me. When I am controlled by another person on how they act to me and I react based on how they're acting to me, rather than I am poised and able to respond, the terminology that we used yesterday, or Vilma actually brought up yesterday, I think that's really important. So that doesn't mean, by the way, you have to hang out with this person who's constantly doing, negative things to you. unless it's your children, or spouse or something. But on the contrary, I think it's strength that we are showing, not weakness. Now, that doesn't, how that expresses itself and how it should express itself, that's already, there's many ways it can, and that's a little difficult to say right now. Okay, like I can't, without knowing any particular details. Just give me one moment over here, Samuel, before I lose the feed over here. Where's Samuel? Did you put a question mark before? Please, Samuel, put 2 question marks before, not at the end. That's why I didn't see it. I'm always kind to someone. I'm just wondering if when you're always kind to people are not and they're not the same way. All right, so you did good and others didn't. Again, that's part of the control, expectation, control. We want to have things. Are we really being kind when we're doing good and really we have an expectation that we should get something in return for the kindness that we've done? Are we really being kind, or are we being selfish? I would suggest it's not so kind that we have that expectation. You give, there's no expectation. That's real giving. When do we do that, by the way? You know when we do it? When we bury somebody. It's called a chesed shel emes. It's a kindness that's really true. Because you're burying that person and they can't do anything in return for you. That's what we call it. Davida, do we give if you feel you are being scammed? No, you're being scammed? What do you mean, like on internet, someone scamming you? First of all, that's not charity. That's not giving. And you mean because a person is really a drug addict and they're using money for drugs? So give them a sandwich instead of giving them money, right? So, if you're being scammed, I don't know if you would give them. One moment, let me just finish off over here before I lose the feed. Alice, should we be giving to random beggars? Again, if you're giving them quarter, 50 cents, $1, why not? You don't know what they're going to do with that money. Can't do that much with it. That's the truth. I try to do that. I don't always have money on me. That's my problem. I don't have cash. That's part of my problem. Okay. Who wanted to share with Vilma? You wanted to share something? Was it Batya? It was Jeffrey? I didn't notice. Vilma.
Yes, I was going to say something.
Go ahead.
So, people discuss about the ways that they give, and you've discussed, giving. And it's something that people discriminate all the time. When we make decisions on what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. That's called discrimination. Laws do that too. Everybody does that when they make a choice. They say, I'm going to do this, but not that. So when you give, you choose who you're going to give to, when, and how. So, there's no commandment that says you have to give everything to everyone. That's not discriminatory. That's not even giving. That's, weird. You give in such a way, as you've explained, not to people that are going to scam you, not to give every single thing away, but to give with a purpose, to, you said tzedakah, 10 to 20%, with thought.
Yeah, I mean, again, if a beggar's on the street and you're giving them, 50 cents or whatever, unless a person's really in a bad shape and 50 cents is something that they really need, it's one thing. But, definitely good idea. definitely something good that should be done. Absolutely.
Right, but let me just quick add to that. I think
Sure.
maybe what Vilma was saying is that if just because someone asks you or there's an opportunity or you feel bad, you start to just like distribute, let's not say give, you start to distribute money. You know, that's not the same as what you have taught, which is that it's with a heart and it's with an intention. You don't give out of guilt per se, right? And there's certain charities maybe that you personally would more favor. So because those are the ones that really you have a heartfelt connection to. So I think that's maybe what she was getting at.
Right. But can you give 50 cents in doing it with intention and doing it with a value to it, and do it with with a smile, and to do it in a nice way? I don't know if there should be necessarily a distinction if you're giving 50 cents or you're giving $100 or $1,000. In whatever instance that you can, do it with intent. Do it with with a smile that you're doing something that God wants you to do. So whether He wants you to give 50 cents, $100, $1,000, this is what God needs me to do right now. This is what's needed of me. This is, my way of serving God right now, and helping and changing and doing something for another and being kind. So can it not be done, because it's something that this is more meaningful to me? Yeah, so you'll do it with more exuberance. I get that. But there could be the, hasn't it happened to all of us that, sometimes we just shared a word with somebody just in passing, and, it was heartfelt. It was, they were going through some difficulty, and you said something to them that touched them. And it was only, a 2-minute discussion. But in that 2-minute discussion, you said something that, it stayed with them and comforted them. And you said it just, whatever, it wasn't. My point is that even small little encounters, a 50-cent encounter, or a $5,000 encounter, we can make a mark. That's my point. I don't know if I'm clear on that. All right. Beautiful. Okay. Eliana, please share with us.
Good morning, and I'm in my car, so I apologize if there's background noise. But I wanted to maybe give, a story, or it's a story that happened to me as we've been progressing through these last few letters. While in South Carolina, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of different people, and one person I came across, her husband had passed away. She lost, the 80% of her income. She was struggling with everything, and as I was talking with her, I had this desire, and I had just gotten paid, so I had, extra cash, so to speak, on me, and I just had this desire to give her $200. I have no idea where that desire came from, but as I was thinking about it, and I walked back to my car to get some cash, I did what every logical person would do. I gave her half. Gave her $100, and feeling semi-satisfied because I drove off, and I honestly felt like I gypped her, like I shorted her, because I had like this inspiration to give her $200, and I walked away feeling like I gypped her. But in our conversation, she told me some of the things that she enjoyed eating. So the next day when I was buying groceries for me, I went and got a couple of those things that she enjoyed eating. That way she had, she really was struggling with food. So I, got her some food, and, you know, again, I felt satisfied, and it was going back to my own conscience because I felt satisfied, but I still felt like I tipped her $100. And, you know, a couple of weeks had passed, and I had an evening off, so I went out to go visit her and her grandkids, and, you know, and I was touched because, you know, her grandson really wanted to help her and help, you know, ends meet, so he sold one of his frogs, sold it for 37 cents. He was like, I think he's 5, and to him that was a lot of money, and he gave that 37 cents with so much pride, and because he knew he was helping his grandma. And here I am convicted because I have more, and I'm like dipping her $100. So I drive out there with the intention of giving her, you know, I knew I was driving out there with the intention to give her something. And as I pulled up, I leaned over to my bag, I grabbed, my gut now said $300, you know, and I was like, 300? What? You know, I grabbed 200 because, again, I felt satisfied. And as I'm talking to her, she said, you know, I got a $400 tax. So she has no idea what's going on in my brain, but she's just telling me some of the things she's going through. She had a $400 tax bill for her husband's truck that she had to pay. And I'm thinking, I was just about to give that to you. And I drove off again, giving her with the 200 in my pocket, feeling like I tipped her. And then finally, my conscience just got the best of me, and I drove back. I gave her not only what I was supposed to have given her, and at least what my gut was telling her to give her, but I gave her a little extra more because I was like, have a pizza party, enjoy your family, you know, take some downtime. And coming back from South Carolina to Texas, my brake light stopped working, and I had, you know, when your brake lights aren't working, it's kind of a big deal. They didn't work when my headlights were on. It took me 3 days to get back home instead of, you know, the 15 hours straight that it should have just taken me. And having no idea what in the middle of the night, and literally said, hey, I started a new business working on cars. If you need something, let me know. And I'm like, oh, yes. I need my brake lights worked on. And he fixed it for the amount that I gave beyond what I thought I was supposed to give her. He doesn't know my story, but he fixed it for the exact amount that I gave beyond what I thought I was supposed to give her. You know, so, you know, sometimes it's $100, sometimes it's 200, and I was downtown South Carolina, you know, and I parked on an iffy street, you know, there was a bunch of, you know, homeless, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I was like, God, protect my car, because I don't want nothing to happen, but it's the only place I can park. And I had some tens in my pocket, and there was about 4 guys sitting there, and I kind of acknowledged them when I got out of the car, like, hey, I see you, don't break into my car. And I came back, my car was in perfect condition, so I gave each one of them $10 but it wasn't just, hey, here's something, you know, I have no idea what they're going to do with it, but I gave it to them in a sense of dignity. Thank you for watching my car. And that way it wasn't just, I was handing them something for nothing, right, but acknowledging that they sat literally, you know, one, they didn't break into my car, but they also watched it because I was the only thing sitting in front of them. And I know they were there because they're like, hey, no, they actually said nothing happened to your car. Here's $10. Thank you. You know, so there's times that we can give, but give with dignity so that we increase the other's character and increase their purpose, because we all need purpose, whether we're sitting on the street.
Oh. Got disconnected. Wow. Okay. That was some story. Yeah, give with dignity, absolutely. When we give, that's the way it needs to be done, and that's why there's different levels on how to give, and give a way that we don't take away the dignity of another. Absolutely, we've discussed about that before. That was very nice, and that's where the challenge is, right? Sometimes we know that there's a right thing to do, or we feel that it's the right thing to do, and you know, there's a challenge that you know, let me hold on. I don't have to give so much, and I'll feel okay with just giving this amount. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Eliana. Oh, you're back there. Okay, you got disconnected. I hope the brake lights are working.
You know, the brake lights, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but the brake lights are working, and I don't know where I cut out, but, you know, my whole point was Rabbi, I think I cut out when I was saying, well, I gave where it hurts, and that was actually what we were discussing, whatever letter that was.
Mm-hmm.
Or talking about give where it hurts. I gave where it hurt, and I kept going back because I'm like, I need this to hurt.
Right.
Well, for whatever reason, I needed to hurt, and I needed to cross over that barrier. And that extra $100, whatever it was what I had to give to get through whatever that barrier was. So sometimes you got to give dignity to another person, and sometimes, that's how we bring light into the world. So
Yeah.
that was my story.
Thank you. Amazing story.
Thank you.
Amazing story. I want to bring that up again when we get into boundless giving. So we'll touch upon that further, actually, in tomorrow's class. Yeah. So in tomorrow's class, we'll touch upon that more. Tomorrow, the day after, perhaps. But yeah, beautiful. Thank you. That is an amazing way to give, above and beyond. Okay. Jane, is it right to say sorry to someone just to make them feel better or make the situation better, even if you know you did not do anything wrong? Yeah, I think actually you can say sorry when, even if you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, that's a...
There are some people, Rabbi, who do that very well. It's like a crafty use of language. They're like, I'm sorry you feel that way, which really has nothing to do with like feeling sorry for anything except for the way the person feels.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a way to do it, and there's even a higher and greater way to do that. But yeah. But I'm going to leave that question right now because that's a lengthy conversation for the moment. But because there's a question here: is it better to give a large amount one time to one person or less, but to give to more people? You know what? That's hard to say 100%. It's better to give numerous times because we should always be giving. It depends, it's definitely to give more often than less often. So if you're giving a lesser amount and it adds up to the same thing, that's better as a general rule. And not necessarily doesn't mean to give to other people. It can even be the same person. Is it correct to say that the mitzvah chooses us? We spoke about that in a previous letter about your lot. What is your lot? Lottery. We spoke about that. So there can be that which you are specifically. Okay. All right. I think we went through all the questions. All right, we will continue our conversation. A reminder that we have a Rambam today, finishing off the laws of Sukkah and Lulav, even though it's not Sukkah and Lulav yet. But it's time to learn about it. Today, 12:45 on Zoom, 770-770-6085. And also on Chabad ZK Facebook. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all for joining.